All right, hi guys, it's 8 o'clock. Welcome. We are starting off the bat here. I'm gonna get my slides pulled up. Tonight's Instagram live class is on asking me anything health and wellness related. And yes, okay, so we're just gonna give people a few seconds. Hi, Jana, how are you? Excited to see you. Hi, Maddie. Okay, so good. We have a couple people hopping on. Tonight is a fun one. This one is a good class because my favorite part of any class is answering questions. You know, you can go through a whole topic, and honestly, that the end of the topic or the class is the questions asked, and I always feel like someone asked the questions that I wanted to know because I was a little bit afraid to ask. And so that's kind of what this is about. So I had you guys probably for the last 2 weeks just give me different questions, and then they're common questions that my patients will just be asking me in the treatment room. And like, that's a great question. It's a very common question. So that's what we're doing tonight, is we're answering a lot of very commonly asked questions that you want to know, and I'm excited to basically get started with that. By the way, if you have questions while you're on, go ahead and put into the comments, and we'll answer more questions as we go along. All right, so okay, good. We got a good hi Tim, hi Marla, thanks for joining, you guys. Okay, so like I said before, if you have questions as we're going along, feel free to type something in the chat. But we're going to just get started on the questions that you guys sent in to me and texted me and asked me in the treatment room. All right, the very first one is from a dear good friend. Her name is Rachel, and she might join us here tonight. She had a really good question because, as you can imagine, when you're starting down the health and wellness journey, there's so much information. It can be overwhelming, and you want to pretty much give up from the get-go. And I'm with you on that, right? Because we've all had to start somewhere with our health. And the amount of information is enough to just make you want to scream and be like, forget it, I'm just gonna eat my sugar and my grains, and I'm gonna stay up all night, and I don't care, right? Because we just, sometimes the defeat is like, we'll take it. So this is a great question because all about health is just taking baby steps. The more baby steps you take, the better you're gonna just start making progress. So she gave she had a great question. Small steps to a healthier lifestyle, changes I can make that will have an impact. And there's a lot of good ones out there, but I'm going to give you some of my top just suggestions that I just tell my patients right off the bat, like, how do we start making an impact for you that you don't have to feel lost and overwhelmed, and that you have to do it all on your own and have to know everything perfectly, which is impossible. I still am learning things, and I've been on this journey for a very long time. The good news is a lot of the stuff I share with you is tried and true, and it works. It works for a majority of my patients, which is why I wanted to start doing these classes, because it's been probably, my dad was a naturopath doctor, right? And so he started down his journey when I was 15, getting healed of cancer. So I'm just doing some random math, and that's like 30 plus years of just being bombarded with health and wellness alternatives. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just start sharing it. So here we are. You all know me. The number one thing I will tell you that makes a huge impact in your health, right? A small step that makes a big impact: magnesium. I think you all can be laughing and chuckling with me now, because I think you all have heard me say magnesium, magnesium, magnesium. And you've all heard me say if I could have a bumper sticker, I would. And the reason being, magnesium is one of those components that helps all your cogwheels turn in your cell. And they help you to detox. They help you to make neurotransmitters. They help to relax the muscles. They help your liver to function. Magnesium is just one of those amazing minerals that once you start taking, I tell patients, and to be quite honest, about 50% of their issues start to kind of clear up, whether it's like headaches or aches and pains. Anxiety is a huge one. Bowel issues, energy, right? Hormone detox. So magnesium is a huge one, and I really firmly believe that if you can get it in on a daily basis, if you're a female, I suggest 500 milligrams a night. If you're a male, 800 milligrams a night. And I tell people to take it at night because y'all guess, if you're all, I know everybody on here knows the answer. Because it can move your bowels, and if you take it at night, it doesn't appear to like cause bowel movement so fast. It's more so in the morning, then you have a nice bowel movement. You take it during the day, you can kind of get the tummy rumblies, and you're just kind of like, oh, what? That's annoying. So I just say at night. Another option, you all know, Epsom salt baths. It's a great way to get magnesium absorbed into your system, because guess what? We're not always digesting things very well. So the internal magnesium might not always go to the place it needs to. But Epsom salt baths seem to do a really good job for those who just can't absorb nutrients, okay? So I usually suggest 2 to 3 a week if you can. If you don't have a bath, you can do a couple things. You can do a foot soak. You can take Epsom salt hot water and a rag and just kind of like rinse it, squeeze it up, put it on muscles, put it, wherever, so your body just absorbs that in, okay? They even make magnesium sprays and lotions. Amazon has 1 million of them that you can find good reviews. My only caution for that is sometimes a magnesium spray or a gel or a lotion can sometimes irritate the skin, and so just know that you might feel like an itchiness and then it goes away, okay? So that's just it's a magnesium salt. All right, my second tip, a small step to take, is breakfast. That is the biggest thing that I see where people they're doing their best to go, health and wellness, and they just fall short on like the breakfast choices. And you name it, right? It's your bagels, your cereal, your whole wheat toast, which is very actually high in sugar. You have to watch my sugar class, and I talk about that. You have yogurts with high sugar. You have your orange juice. You have your sugary coffee beverage. What else? Muffins, Pop-Tarts, Eggo waffle. So like all the breakfast items are full of sugar and just are gonna crash your system right off from your very beginning of your day. And so there's even research showing that if you are one who consumes cereal on a regular basis, you're at risk for heart disease, obesity, cancer, all those bad diseases, because you're starting your day off with sugar, okay? So breakfast, if you can make small steps to just focus around protein and fat, that is huge, right? And it carries you to then make the next good choice, and you won't crash and you won't want more sugar. So breakfast is a great impactful step that you can make, and anyone can do it, right? It's a no-brainer to research eggs. I can do eggs, I can do frittatas, I can do turkey bacon, I can do no sugar yogurts. I could do a sourdough bread with maybe some avocado on top, right? So there's so many good breakfast alternatives. And then leading into that, sugary beverages. That's the other huge thing that we all are compromising our health on, is when we choose to drink juices and even iced tea that's sweetened. I used to love Arnie Palmer's. That was one of my things that I would just get anytime I went out to eat, was an Arnie Palmer. And if you're not familiar with that, it's half iced tea, half lemonade. And it's amazingly good, but it had a ton of sugar, right? And then on top of that, you have your coffee drinks. In one of my previous classes on sugar, the thing I was addicted to was the Caribou Caramel Coolers, which is a local coffee shop in Minnesota. And it was about 96 grams of sugar that I was practically having every day, and sometimes starting my day with it. So huge, if you can start turning some of these sugary drinks into a non-sugar option or water, that's going to benefit you big time, okay? And then as far as like alternative sugars, like I know you can get drinks that are sugar-free, and I think that's okay in moderation, but you have to understand sometimes the sugar alternatives are like aspartame and acetylsame, I can't even say acetylsame K, Splenda, sucralose, those are the common ones, and they can be kind of a neurotoxin to our system. So I just tell people in moderation on those, but just try to wean yourself to where you don't need to rely on that, and you're getting a sweet, like maybe the sweet tooth from like berries or a sweet potato. But eventually, as you start to eat healthy and you take these journeyal steps, your taste buds and your insulin receptors start to not crave sugar as much. And it's a really cool process. And people don't believe me when I tell them this. They're like, no way, I could never give up sugar. No way, I love it too much. And lo and behold, they give it a try, and yes, then they start to crave sugar, or like they'll start to crave sugar less. Or when they have a bite of sugar, they're like, okay, that's good. And my husband, a good testimony to his situation, I've been on his case about sugar for so many years. And it's just recently in the last year, he told me, you know what? You're starting to make an impact because I'm not wanting sugar as much. And you are right. When I'm now taking a bite of something sweet, my body is not necessarily wanting it anymore. And you can imagine as a wife who's just been like, please stop eating sugar, and please, right? I can't force him. It's got to be his idea. Love him. But I know in marriage, you got to let them figure it out, okay? And so he was ready. He was tired of feeling tired. He was tired of having overweight issues. And he just started to cut down sugar on his own terms and means. And lo and behold, he had less cravings, and he said, the sweetness is too much now, okay? So that's a great step that anyone can take. Now, in terms of the next step, eat enough food. You guys, we are not eating enough food throughout our day. You would think, well, yeah, I am. I'm eating all the time. I will back it up and say, actually, most people are not eating enough protein. So let me explain maybe a typical average day. You wake up, maybe you're not hungry, or you have to rush out the door, or you're just like, I can't even think about making breakfast, right? And so then breakfast and morning go by, maybe you run to get a coffee with sugar, and then like maybe that's your meal, no protein there. And then you come and like, okay, lunchtime, ready to have lunch, whether it's a sandwich, maybe it's soup, salad. But I tell people on average, it's probably maybe about 10 to 15 grams of protein at lunch. And then, okay, so then your afternoon comes along, and maybe you'll have a snack. Some people, it'll be like chips or a bagel. I see people will snack on bagels a lot, so that's like practically all carbohydrates. Some people do nuts. Some people do like yogurt or string cheese. I've seen that. But again, that's maybe 5 grams of protein. And then you get to dinner, and most people, I do know that this is where they get most of their protein intake, which is yay. It'll be a meat and maybe a protein, or a meat and a vegetable, or a meat and a starch. And again, that meat might be then maybe 20 grams. So if you've done the math with me, lunch 15, maybe a snack another 5 grams, and then dinner. So if you did the math, that's about 40 grams of protein that you had in your day. We're going to get to a slide later on that we're going to talk about what the protein amounts are supposed to be for people, and you're going to be shocked. So pause with me on that. But eating more protein is one of the best small steps you can take for your health, okay? Walking daily. I love suggesting walking daily because, believe it or not, it actually calms down your adrenal glands. When you're going walking and you're swinging your arms, you're getting, full body movement, you're releasing muscles, you're moving lymphatic system, and you're not stressing your system. And I would say I would rather you walk than go on a jog, because for some people, their adrenal systems are so overtaxed that even a jog is too much for their adrenal systems. And that creates what's called cortisol. Cortisol then makes you have the belly fat, and then it starts to affect your hormones. So for most people, walking is a very, very, very good alternative that you can just start doing. You don't have to go crazy with exercise. Most people think you do, but slow is better, okay? And then maybe work your way up to jogging if you feel like it. But the walking part has actually, it'll decrease the stress in your body, okay? All right, the next one is a small step to take is sabotaging your health. This is going to be actually my next class. As you can imagine, when I'm telling people how to live a healthier lifestyle, and myself included, there's things that you're like, I don't know if I can live without that. I'm not ready for this health journey. I think I can't do it. It's going to be too hard. And you already start to give up before you even make the first step. And that's a method of self-sabotage where you start to tell yourself, no, I can't do that. I'm scared, and I just, we like to stay comfortable. We don't like to go out of the box of the unknown, right? And so self-sabotage is huge when it comes to making a small step for health. And so therefore, then what I suggest to people, if you find yourself doing that, there are so many podcasts and audiobooks and just books, even just talking with friends on like, why am I avoiding wanting to take care of myself? Why don't I want to get to bed sooner? Why do I need to go out of my way to go get that sugar coffee drink? Like, why do I have these patterns and habits set in that is sabotaging my success of steps, right? So we'll talk more about that in 2 weeks. It's going to be a really good class. I get excited about the mindset part of health and wellness, because it is all about mindset. It really is, okay? Because you have to make that choice to want to take care of yourself. No one else can do it for you. And then on top of that, honestly, you have to give yourself grace and time, because health does not happen overnight. And if you started to beat yourself up because you're not getting there fast enough, you got to knock that off, okay? So those are my first huge big steps that you guys can take that will make a big impact. Anyone can do it. And then we're going to move on to the next question, okay? This is a good one. Let's see. Good. How are you guys doing? I love it. Thanks for joining so far. All right. Is decaf coffee okay to drink? This is a really good question. And I'm going to say it depends on your situation. Caffeine in its own right, in moderation, is fine. Most of us have become reliant on caffeine throughout our whole entire day. And when that's the case, that's not fine. So then people are like, okay, well then I'll just start to switch to decaf because I like the taste of coffee. Yes, I would actually say that's a good idea. Caffeine itself is, it's a stimulant, right? It gets us energy. It creates energy that it can turn into, it's called epinephrine and norepinephrine, and it kind of just gives us that like, woohoo, here we go. you keep doing that though, and you stimulating with caffeine, eventually your adrenal glands are like, I can't keep up. And if you've watched my hormone class, I have a little triangle thing where if your adrenal glands are affected, your thyroid gland will be, and so then will your sex hormones be affected. So too much caffeine and too much hardship on your adrenal glands really can mess with other parts of your body, especially if you're a female, okay? All right, organic coffee, even better. So thanks for asking that question. The reason being, organic coffee obviously is not going to be sprayed with pesticides and herbicides, and they're just going to take a better approach of giving you quality, right? Because the coffee, let's just face it, it's highly toxic if you didn't know better. It's very, very chemically laden with pesticides and herbicides, and then yeah, unfortunately there's molds at times. So usually there are alternatives that if people really enjoy coffee, I'm one of them, I really enjoy coffee. I have really cut down, I will say, I've really cut down because back in the day when I was dealing with multiple sclerosis, I was not cutting down. I was drinking it all throughout the day because chiropractic school is, you go 40 hours plus a week to school and then you go straight home and you study. And it's just, I joke because the Caribou Coffee near my home was, if you've ever seen that show Cheers, where everybody knows your name, they all knew my name. And in fact, they even started, we experimented with making me a drink because I didn't drink coffee up until starting chiropractic school because I had to stay up late and I had to cram and I had to pass all my exams. And so Caribou, they kind of got me, started into my coffee love. I do love coffee. I love the taste of it. But it didn't start off with the dark, bitter, strong, just black coffee. No way. Gross. Who does that, right? I had to start off with the sugary, frothy, delicious, creamy stuff. And that's where the Caribou Cooler was my addiction. And then the other thing was really cute. They made a drink for me that I really loved. It was called the marshmallow. And it was an invention. But anyways, the point is, yes, coffee was kind of an addiction. I was drinking it all day long. My adrenal glands got taxed. Long story short, I've had to back it down, and now I just have black coffee, or I have what's called an Americano. Believe it or not, it has less caffeine than regular coffee. And then I usually have heavy cream in it when I'm just wanting just like the creaminess, because I want just the good fat and I don't want any of the carbohydrates. But that's just me, okay? That's what I do. The other thing that I'll do is green tea. I love green tea. And so that's the other drink that I've been kind of transitioning to, is the iced green teas at these different coffee shops. And if they're organic, yes. If I'm at home, it's all organic, right? Because I can control that. But when I'm out with a friend and I'm doing the 80-20 rule, I'm not gonna worry about not having a healthy coffee per se, because 80% of the time in my life, I am really making sure that I'm supporting my liver, my gut, because you can't live life perfect, right? You gotta do your best when you can, and then you save the 20% of the time when you're with friends or celebrating, and then you try not to worry about it, right? You don't stress, because then that causes more issues. So decaf coffee, if you did not know how they get rid of the caffeine, sometimes they use methylene chloride. This is not all companies, but this is a very common practice that they pour this on the bean, and then it gets out the caffeine that way. There are really good coffee beans out there if you're just like, I just want to see what this is like. You can't really see it too well, but Purity Coffee and Kion Coffee, I kind of put them there. Both are organic, and how they get the caffeine out of their bean is like mountain water, right? So it's like a very healthy process. So yes, coffee itself is a good antioxidant. There are protective benefits to drinking coffee. It's really the big thing is caffeine and like the pesticides and the molds that can be on your coffee bean. So those are the things to understand when it comes to coffee. Okay. Oh yeah, Oksana, you love the Americana and cream too. Yeah, I don't know what it is. It just makes me happy. And I usually will do it in the morning. I try not to drink any coffee. Let's just say after 2 p.m. because then yes, it's a stimulant and it will keep me up, and I don't want to be doing that. I want to get good sleep, right? Sometimes what I'll do is I'll switch to green tea as my afternoon drink when I just kind of want a beverage, or you're out with friends. I will get then the iced green tea. That's just me, okay? All right, the next question, great question. I actually got this question a couple times because it is such a controversial topic, birth control. And I'm not gonna give my total opinion on everything because everybody's at different situations in life. And honestly, if you are on birth control, the first thing that you probably want to understand is that birth control stops ovulation. And that means that the eggs won't release, and then therefore you can't make a baby because there's no eggs released. That's what birth control does. Now, knowing hormones, and if you want to kind of learn more about that, that was the very last class that I did 2 weeks ago, was on hormone balancing. But when you do not ovulate, you don't make a hormone called progesterone. Progesterone is very important for female health, and it's cancer protective, protects against clots. It helps to stop the all sorts of the crazy symptoms like hot flashes, weight gain. You want progesterone in your system. So if you are on birth control because you have your good reasons, I would suggest that maybe you look into what that birth control is doing to your hormones until you are possibly at some point ready to be off of birth control. Because there are many reasons people want to go off of it, because it's messing with their hormones, it's causing thyroid issues, weight gain issues, moodiness, acne, you name it. You guys all know there's a lot of associated side effects to taking birth control. And the other reason people go off is because they want to start getting pregnant. And long term, if you are on birth control years and years and years, doesn't happen to everybody, but what we've seen in the natural realm, women that because they stopped having ovulation and stopped making progesterone, they then have PCOS start to form and endometriosis. And there's just all sorts of other situations that happen then that they can't get pregnant or they have miscarriages. And so the point is, if you are to start down that avenue, really know what you're getting into and research the side effects and how long you would want to be on it. How would you support your hormones if you needed to go on it? And a really good test I do that's called the Dutch test. And there are patients who run this Dutch test, it's a urine test, to see when they're on birth control, what is it doing to their hormones. And then what they can do is support naturally all the pathways so that when they do want to go off of it, they're not a hot mess, okay? Now, if you don't want to do any birth control, yeah, obviously the best way that's going to be very, consistent, okay? Because some of you may have heard my story. Never been on birth control ever in my life. And I knew my cycle is very regular, and we got to plan both pregnancies because I knew my cycle. I knew when I ovulated. If you do it well, it's technically 3 to 5 days, up to 6 or 7 days in the month that you can truly get pregnant. And so then there's other methods, there's condom, there's withdrawal method, there's, spermicides, there's all sorts of things out there. But for the most part, women, if you know your cycle and you're supporting your hormones, it's the least riskiest situation for hormones long term. And I get to say that because as a practitioner, I'm now seeing all the women who were on birth control for, their 20s, 30s, 40s, and now they're in their 40s and they are in a very dire health crisis situation, and they don't know what to do with themselves, and then they're regretting going on birth control. Okay, but it's not like I'm trying to say bad for you if you're on birth control. What I'm trying to say is know your body, what it's doing when you're taking these medications, so that you can prevent down the road the side effects, right? If that makes sense. Okay, so a couple of questions. What are some good non-hormonal birth control? There's so many out there on the market. There's probably one that if people wanted to kind of look into, it's called Phexxi. It's called Phexxi. And how it works is so the vaginal pH is naturally acidic. So it's about 3.5 to 4.5. That's what the natural vaginal flora pH is, okay? It's naturally acidic. And when you have intercourse, the semen and the sperm actually are alkaline. And so that kind of goes up, the pH goes up to about 7, and then that allows then for the sperm to then make their way and then, fertilize an egg. So there are some products out there that you can inject before intercourse that then keeps the pH down. And it's practically all natural. The ingredients are like lactic acid, and then it's just like a couple other ingredients that are not going to be, I guess you could say, controversial. And so they're like lactic acid, citric acid, which is vitamin C, and then just a couple other things. So that's something. Some people have been looking into that, and there's other ones out there. I'm not an expert on birth control types. That would be a holistic medical doctor. But what I am an expert on is what medications do to you hormonally, and then how to support you naturally if you are on those situations, if that makes sense. Okay, so great question. It's one of those things that you have to do what's right for you. And I was just, when you're making decisions with any medication, what's it going to do to you long term, okay? And then how can you support yourself in the moment so that you can be successful and not regret things that happen, right? Not regret decisions you made. Okay, next question. Let's see here. Okay, you guys are doing awesome. And let's see, Bree is on here. Bree, you asked this question. Okay, I thought this was a great question. Do we meal prep? And if so, what are your go-tos? Yes, we plan ahead. Now, do I meal prep like every Sunday? I wish I could say I did. I wish I had the time to just set it all up in a beautiful little package of bundles of Tupperware or glass Tupperware, because we use glass, we don't use plastic. But no, what we do is I cook in big batches. And the big batches, I'm going to show you on my next slide if you want a screenshot. I cook in big batches, like I'll make chicken salad, turkey salad, tuna salad, egg salad. And I'll do like your red onions and celery, and I'll do pickle juice and some, organic mayonnaise and like the seasonings. And so I'll put that in like a glass jar in a large amount. And then you can do anything with that. You can put that on lettuce. You can put that on a sprouted tortilla wrap. You can put it in sourdough bread. And so you have then, okay, great. I have a quick, easy protein source to grab that's healthy, okay? The other thing that we make in big batch is quinoa. I will say, as we kind of keep going down this list, my Instant Pot is my BFF. If you don't have an Instant Pot, put it on your gift list. Or if you have one in your cupboard and you're afraid, you're like, I don't know how to use it, it intimidates me. It is a lifesaver when you want to cook meat, okay? And for me, quinoa. So once a week, we will take a whole little pouch of quinoa and a whole container of chicken broth. Put it in the Instant Pot, stir it around, push rice, and then we have this big, beautiful, fluffy thing of quinoa that we put in Tupperware, and then we put it in the fridge. And then whenever we want another good protein and a good carb source, we're grabbing scoops, putting it in a bowl. You can have it with your chicken salad, you can have it with a meat, you can have just butter on it. It's really good that way. You can sprinkle it on salad, right? So these are just tips and tricks that we do to just make our life fast. We cut up veggies ahead of time, or we try to buy ones that are pre-cut up. That's really fun. The kids love when you have that all like in a nice big Tupperware, and like they can take off the lid and just grab all the veggies. That's fun. We do a lot of ground beef in the Instant Pot. So I will take ground beef. I'll usually do 3 pounds at a time and rip it, put it in there frozen, because I don't got time to think about thawing everything ahead of time. It's frozen. Put it in, and then you click on your meat button, and it usually takes about 2 hours, and then it's done, and then I go in and I cut it up, mash it up, and I have ground beef or ground turkey. And then you can do whatever you want with that. You can put taco seasoning, you can put marinara sauce, you name it, right? And so we have a protein that's ready to go in our fridge, and again, we can scoop it and put it on top of the quinoa. We can, make taco night, okay? Meatballs, that one, sometimes if I'm like ambitious, I will make a bunch at a time and just cook them all up. And guess where I cook them? My Instant Pot, okay? I don't like to watch anything. I just want to set it and then walk away, because I don't got time to be slaving over the stove. I got stuff to do, but I still want to be healthy. Shredded chicken, that's another great one in an Instant Pot. Frozen chicken, throw it in there. Click the meat or the poultry button, and like 20 minutes later, you have perfectly cooked all the way through tenderized chicken. That's not like, when you do it on the pan, it can like take a while and it can still be tough. Instant Pot chicken is like heaven. It's just like, and then it shreds, or you can cut it up. You can like do the whole breast, and then there you go. I'll do a lot of sauces in with the chicken. So like we'll do like a butter chicken. We'll do like a healthy, if we there's like no sugar barbecue sauces that you put in there. So it could be like a no sugar barbecue chicken, and like this stuff, like these proteins, just like you make a bunch of it, stack it in your fridge, and then when you're ready to go, you got your protein and you got your other things. Okay, so you can see that the most common thing that I do for meal prep is proteins. Okay, so grilled chicken, shredded chicken, turkey bacon, that I will cook up in the air fryer, and I'll just, when I'm doing everything, it's not just like little bits, it's like we just do a lot of it, because I have 2 teenage boys, and you guys, I can't keep up. They're just, it's true when you get teenage boys, when they say they do nothing but eat, and it is so true. So I feel like I'm cooking for a family of 10, and it's just 2 teenage boys, okay? So we'll do turkey bacon. Boiled eggs are another one. You can do those in the Instant Pot. That's really fun. This is another trick I'll do. I will buy protein pancakes or keto pancakes. Basically, they're made with almond flour. We don't do the carbohydrate pancakes because we don't do that. I don't like spiking our blood sugar. So we'll do a protein pancake. I'll just cook them up a ton in a batch, and then I'll put them in a bag or a Tupperware in the fridge, and then guess what? The boys then can grab those pancakes and just make them, they'll just eat them. They'll just eat them right up. Don't even like put anything on it. They just like that. Egg muffins, healthy muffins, those are things you can do ahead of time, make them in big batches. One thing that I do a lot of is chia pudding. I will make another big glass container, And I'll do it so that it's enough for probably 3-4 days. And often that'll just be my breakfast, where it's coconut milk or almond milk, chia seed, and then protein powder. Sometimes I'll throw in other stuff like probiotic powder. So it's like all those food powder things that you purchase and you're like, sometimes I don't know what to do with them. That's where I dump them. I'm just dumping them in my chia pudding, and I mix it, and then I kind of taste. I'm like, okay, that tastes good. Sometimes I'll add a little stevia extract because it's just like, okay, right? It's just like a melding on the tongue, and then it sits in the fridge overnight, and boom, in the morning I got breakfast, or boom, in the afternoon when I want like a protein snack, take a couple bites of those. So chia pudding has been one of the best, fastest ways to just get food in me that's very nutritious, okay? And then the very last one on there is sourdough French bread, another thing that you can make in big quantities, right? You buy your sourdough, you got your egg and your milk, and I usually do like cinnamon, I'll do almond extract, and then I'll make my French toast, and you just make a ton of it, stick it in the fridge, and people just are happy. So that's how I meal prep, and it's because it's for a family. Now, if I was single, I would probably do the individual, like set up my, the container with your meats and your veggies and all that. That would be wonderful. I think that would be a great idea if you could do that. So hopefully that helped you guys. But yeah, that's what we do. Next question is, what are your go-to energy drinks? Another great question. Sorry, my face is kind of covering. Now, energy drinks are kind of a fun topic because they're everywhere, aren't they? You got like your Powerades, you got your Red Bulls, you got all the like crazy fancy names of like that these, maybe rock stars drink, and then you got like Gatorade. You have so many options that it's kind of like really confusing. Like, is it healthy? It seems like it's healthy. Okay, I'll just drink it. 9 times out of 10, it is not healthy. Okay, so this is a great question. Obviously, the best energy drink is going to be water, right? Some people go as far as just to kind of sprinkle in a little bit of Celtic sea salt and Himalayan salt, because electrolytes, if you don't know what that term means, it is the minerals that you consume that create electricity in your body. So your nerves, how they communicate, like when I pinch my finger and I feel that, that's actually electricity happening because you have these minerals called potassium, sodium, magnesium, chloride. And because I pinch myself, I create this thing called a threshold. And it's like it makes positive and negative charges go through the nerve all the way up to my brain and say, yeah, you're pinching yourself. Well, electrolytes are things that you consume so that you can have electricity happening in a regulated balance. We've all heard where somebody gets dehydrated and they end up in the hospital, or maybe you've heard special sports players, maybe during the summer, and they get dehydrated and then they unfortunately die from a heart attack. Well, that's because they sweated out all of their electrolytes and dehydrated, and they didn't have those minerals to make the conduction happen, so their heart stopped, okay? And so if you've ever noticed when you're sweating and maybe you like taste your sweat, tastes salty, yeah. So it's a very important thing to be hydrated, especially with electrolytes, okay? So that's why sometimes people do little Celtic sea salts or Himalayan sea salt, and that's gonna be sodium and chloride. So those are two electrolytes, okay? The other really common ones are gonna be magnesium and potassium. So Dr. Eric Berg, he's another great physician that I love following. I absolutely love his electrolyte powder, okay? The reason I love it is because it's very high in potassium. A lot of the electrolyte drinks out there have hardly any potassium. Most of us, just like with magnesium, we are very deficient in potassium. We need on average 4,000 milligrams a day, and most of us don't even like, maybe we hit 1,000, maybe. So his is 1 scoop is 1,000 milligrams, and it tastes really good. It's sweetened with like stevia or monk fruit, so you're not gonna get a blood sugar spike, just like you would get like with Gatorade or the other ones. They're so high in sugar, right? Another great company I love is Seeking Health electrolyte powder. That one has really good balance of electrolytes and then a couple other really unique things that will give you extra energy. So those two, and I tell you guys, I have researched electrolyte drinks out there. I have probably bought 30 to 40 different brands of electrolytes out there, just trying to like see, how do I feel? Do they taste good? Do they have what I would want? And those are the two that I landed on, okay? And they're very good, reputable doctors that all their supplements are just high quality, okay? Amazon, can get it off Amazon. Coconut water is another great electrolyte that's high in potassium, okay? Here we are again. Potassium is a very common deficiency along with magnesium. And you guys, we get a lot of salt in our diet. So we're pretty like good with the sodium and the chloride. We're always deficient in the potassium and the magnesium. So coconut water, high in potassium. It does have some natural sugars, so I'm okay with that because as an athlete, you do need some of that quick glucose to just go into your system and refuel you, right? Because glucose every 90 minutes depletes. And so then you have to recharge between, like if you're playing soccer or basketball tournaments, things like that. Also, I like it if you're sick, because often if you're sick, you're throwing up, you haven't had any food, and your blood sugar's dipping and your electrolytes are dipping. And I like coconut water for when you are not feeling good. You can freeze it as ice cubes. You can make icicles out of it. Way more prefer that than Pedialyte. Hands down, if you've ever seen the ingredients in Pedialyte, you would just be irate, okay? I am irate. It is not a good option. It's just basically all salt and crazy food dyes and random other preservatives in there that do not belong in your children, okay? Coconut water, and if you wanted some salt, sprinkle a little Celtic sea salt, and like maybe I would even more prefer like put juice with it, right? Not the crazy junky stuff that's in Pedialyte, okay? Or Gatorade. Don't get me started. Those are my pet peeves. I cannot stand those drinks for people, especially kids, athletes, and young kids. I get the idea that you're trying to keep them hydrated, but you're basically giving them sugar, salt, and food dyes, and you're gonna dehydrate them more. You're gonna dehydrate them more. Okay. Anyways, sorry, I'm getting excited. Whew, okay. Ice green tea is a really good option for energy. It doesn't necessarily have electrolytes, but it does have antioxidants. So it does give you a natural low caffeine energy. It's like coffee, espresso, black tea, green tea, and then like chocolate are like your caffeine, like you're going down the road of how much caffeine is in a drink. And then if you do have other energy drinks that you know of out there, I'm just a big proponent to not having a ton of sugar in these drinks. And so if you can look for stevia or monk fruit sweetened, that makes me happy. And then if you can look for it where it doesn't have cyanocobalamin, it's kind of a bad, cheap B12 vitamin, then even better, okay? And they're out there. But like I said, there's thousands that you're just like, I don't know where to start. But take my list, and I like the powder because you can bring the powder with you, and it's so much cheaper than, right, you have to go and buy all this plastic. No, you just have powder, scoop it into your water bottle, and you don't have to make a ton of waste, right? Okay, so you guys probably get my point. Avoid certain things in electrolyte drinks. Next question. Okay, because we're on the topic of athletes, so this is another really good question. Good job, you guys. Oh, question on, okay, yes, good questions on electrolytes. Ooh, Sorry, I gotta answer some of these questions. Backing up to when you prep meat and store in the fridge, do you reheat in the microwave or on the stove or on a pan? We will try to do it on a stove, on a pan, but let's just say like the kids are at like school, they have to do microwave. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, unfortunately, microwaves tends to be the thing, and I don't like using the microwave. But if you have the time, definitely use the stove. We use our air fryer a lot. And so that's kind of been our way to just quickly heat things up. But yes, the radiation from a microwave can be kind of damaging to the water in foods, and it can also kind of just change components in the food you're eating. And there's all sorts of studies and research out there on just like how microwaving your foods isn't always the top method, if that makes sense, okay? Reheating on the stove is obviously the best. Okay, electrolytes. Are electrolytes recommended for everyday use? I personally don't mind using them every day. You can do it like every other day. For me, I will drink them towards the evening because as we sleep, you can dehydrate and then you can get leg cramps. And if you've ever had issues where you're dealing with leg cramps at night, it's an electrolyte dehydration situation. Plus, for me, I sleep deeper when I have like electrolytes, like maybe an hour or two before bed. Some people can be very energizing, so just keep that in mind. For me, my body doesn't make me stay up. But you have to experiment with it. And yeah, I think electrolytes are very much a beneficial thing for people to stay hydrated. It helps with focus and concentration. It helps with reaction time. It helps with pain, believe it or not, because it's a threshold thing. When you don't have enough potassium, your threshold of pain is actually decreased, meaning that things can set you off easier. So more potassium actually can bring down pain levels. But yeah, it's about 4,000 milligrams a day. Organic Pedialyte. I did not know they make that. I wonder, I'm going to have to look at the ingredients of organic Pedialyte. So thanks for suggesting. We will have to check that out, Jana. All right, next question. So because we're talking athletes and athletes and electrolytes and energy, this is a great question. If you are an athlete and you're probably stopping from being a high-level athlete, let's just say college level, and you're eating practically anything you want, right? Because you are just nonstop being an athlete. Because those guys, they wake up, train in the morning, and then they go to school, and then they have hours of practice, and then like the next day, then they have like games, and they so it's like it's a full-time job to be a college athlete. So how would you transition diet-wise? I would transition to make sure that you have plenty of protein, more as your focus. Because as an athlete, you need a ton of carbohydrates because you need the glucose to just be like, give me the energy, right? My body's burning glucose for ATP. Well, when you stop going at that intensity of level and you're used to eating lots of carbohydrates and whatever you want, you probably end up seeing it's like the athletes start to gain weight, right? Because they're used to carbs and copious amounts and whatever they want. So I would say focus on protein as your main source, and that'll kind of turn you into keep like a lean body mass and good metabolic burning, and then less carbs, right? Because you're not going to need that many carbs. Let's just face it, right? Unless you continue to want to work out hard. So that's a good conversation to have with like a nutritionist if you are worried about weight gain when it comes to transitioning to active lifestyle. But now the opposite's true. Let's just say you're not an athlete and you are starting to want to bodybuild and be running more or walking more. you actually do need to increase carbohydrate intake, okay? So that's a whole nother class on just like macros and whatnot. But I'm going to transition to the next question on what is the best protein shake, because we're talking protein. And I actually got this question today, and we'll see, I think, if she's still on. She's still on. Okay. Miss Post. Yes, this was your question today. So it's actually a question I get a lot. Because as you can imagine, remember me talking about in the very first slides, big impact steps that you can make towards your health would be protein intake, okay? Remember me talking about going through the day, not really eating breakfast, eating lunch, a snack, and maybe dinner, maybe getting 40 grams of protein, maybe, right? If you look at this chart, and feel free to screenshot, if you are let's just say, on average, a 160 pound person, okay? And you are not working out hardcore, you're just like light workouts, you're just kind of doing daily, just, active lifestyle. It's suggesting for you about 102 to 108 grams of protein, okay? If you're very much working out and you're going, hardcore and you're pumping iron, see how much that bumps up, about 124 to 131 grams. So let's go back to that. Let's just say you're a 160 pound person and you skipped breakfast, you had lunch, snack, and dinner, and you maybe had 40 grams of protein. And the recommendations are a lot more. What do you think is going to happen to your body? Okay. And don't worry, I'll get to that question about the best protein shake. So what do you think is going to happen to your body when you are not getting enough protein in? We'll see if people can answer. And while we're going there, I'm going to move on to the next slide because we're still in the same question. But right now I'm talking about protein amount and protein quality. We're going to get to protein quality. Let's see if anybody... No, okay, all right. So think about this. Protein, when you eat it, it breaks down into something called amino acids. If you ever took biology or like a health class or anatomy, you have building blocks called amino acids. There's about 20 amino acid names out there. And you've probably heard of them. It's like tryptophan, isoleucine, leucine, there's like funny names, right? There's 20 different building blocks. Those little building blocks, when your body needs to make an enzyme, needs to make hair, needs to make a structure for your cell, or skin is partly protein, your nails, the keratin, hormones are partly protein. And so when you need to make all these structures and components in your body, the DNA in your cell says make this protein. And so then it has to then grab all the little amino acids that you broke down from your diet and make you. Okay? If you're not getting enough protein in your day, you're not going to do a good job of making you. Okay? So that's why protein consumption is very important. It's really important for hormones, really important to make enzymes. If you don't know what enzymes are, they make all the cellular reactions happen in your body. They make you break down your food and digest food. So protein is highly important for functioning as a human being. Okay, so that's why I was talking about the steps of big steps is getting more protein consumption in, okay? Many of us do not get enough in by far. Now, this little chart that I have popped up here, because you have protein absorption on top of all this and protein quality. And what's really kind of a fun little screen of this is you can see, well, you can't see it very well, but you could screenshot it and like zoom in. But the best absorbing protein to like kind of give you just good metabolic burning are going to be tuna, chicken breast, organic tofu. Okay, so anytime you see soy, organic, and I'll get to that in a second. Whey protein, organic again. Okay, asparagus, endives. You wouldn't think those were high in protein. And then like it says roast beef, mushrooms as I'm kind of going down. You got beef, pork, whole poultry, salmon, broccoli, mushrooms. And again, if you can do organic and free range and grass fed, those animals and those plants, well, the animals have been fed high quality organic ingredients and they're not going to pass on their junk to you, right? And then the organic vegetables, that's going to be less burden on your liver to get rid of the herbicides and pesticides. And soy is the most genetically modified crop anywhere. Soy, corn, and wheat. And soy is so highly sprayed for Roundup that it's an inflammatory risk. So if you're ever going to do soy, you better make sure it's non-GMO and organic, okay? I'm not a fan of soy because of all the, farming practices, but I do know there's healthy soy options out there. But I'm not, that's a whole nother talk. I'm not a fan of soy in general because it can be kind of estrogenic for some women. But if you need the estrogen, then it's a fan. Then I'm like, take it, right? So you would have to know if you need it based off your hormones, and you can't just guess, okay? And then just kind of going down, you can see that there's better protein absorption, or there's less protein absorption, and it's going to be, your regular, the bacon, processed meats, cheeses, peanuts, peas, and then can't see it very well, but the ones that can kind of cause more fat gain, and this is me getting picky, uber picky about protein, it's going to be nuts, fruits, grains, let's see what's tubers, sugars, and I'm sorry, it's kind of blocked. But my point on this slide is there's protein quality that when you are making choices to eat protein on a regular basis, I don't want you just eating cheese every single meal. I don't want you just doing yogurt, cottage cheese. Although that is a good protein source, it's kind of like diversifying your portfolio of like good bacteria. If you've ever heard me talk about gut health, you want to diversify your portfolio of protein sources, okay? Plant sources, meat sources, nuts, there's a million ways to get protein in. Oh good, I'm glad you like that chart. But obviously you can see that there's really good choices that are going to be better for you if they're clean, healthy meats and clean, healthy vegetables, okay? So best protein shake, I'm still getting to that question. I had to really prep it because here's the thing with best protein shakes. There are a million good protein companies out there, and there's a lot of good ones that I would definitely recommend because it's not only just the protein, like the main ingredients, it's what else do they have in there. And you know me, you've already heard me complain about what they put in the energy drinks. They're putting the same kind of junk in protein shakes. And those are going to be your cheap vitamins, and it's going to be your bad artificial sweeteners like acesulfame K and aspartame and sucralose. And that's the first thing I look for. I'll turn a protein shake over and I'll look for the type of sweetener it is. And if it's those, I will not buy it. Even if it could have the rest of the good components, I know there's enough good companies out there that are going to put all the quality ingredients together, okay? Now with that being said, I like to change it up with my protein sources. So I have bought organic whey isolate protein shakes. Those are really good. I've also bought pea protein shakes. I've bought beef shakes. Believe it or not, you can get beef powdered up, turned into a shake, and you can turn it into a smoothie. Okay? I've also bought egg protein shakes. Okay? So I've varied it up because I know that my body's going to absorb it in different ways. And the point is that I'm trying to be good at getting protein in consistently, okay? All right. Now, I want to just throw a fun little code you guys this way. There is a company that you could look up if you wanted to. It's called bodyhealth.com. Sometimes with patients, when they are so protein deprived, I've had it where they literally can't even eat or want to eat. Or let's just say it's a child and there's protein aversion or like food aversion where like they don't even want protein. They just want mac and cheese or chips or chicken nuggets. And so you have to sometimes trick them into getting nutrients in, right? So this company has done a really good job of isolating out the very common amino acids that people don't get in their diet. And there's shakes, there's bars, there's electrolyte drinks. There's some fun things that you can play around with. And I've tried these products. I like them. I notice a difference. I'm not getting any money from this. This is just a code that I'm giving to you guys that if you wanted to check them out, it's another great protein source along with your 10 other great sources out there, okay? And I'm sorry I don't have a specific shake to recommend, but I think you get the gist of it. There's too many good options, okay? All right, moving on. You guys are doing so good. These are great questions, aren't they? You guys knocked it out of the park with these questions. Okay, so then the next question I have is, what is your opinion on calorie counting versus intuitive eating? Very good question, right? Calorie counting. I'm not a fan of it. I'll just be honest. I'm going to put it out there. If you've ever watched, there's a really good documentary / movie, and it's called That Sugar Film. And it was a documentary of this guy. He's from Australia, and he ate a very clean diet, like, clean meats, vegetables, hardly ever ate sugar. And he knew his calories of his healthy diet. The whole point of the documentary, he swaps his calories out for things that are labeled as healthy and all natural. And so it ends up being like yogurts and cereals, juice, and he's getting the same amount of calories in with these quote-unquote healthy foods that are marketed as healthy, and he gains like 30 pounds in like, I think 2 months, something like that. His liver turned to fat. His cholesterol and lipid numbers just were like, the doctors could not believe how fast his body got so ill. And it was healthy food, okay? So it's a really good documentary. It's kind of funny, but it's very eye-opening to a calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie, because if that was the case for him, he was getting the same amount of calories as his healthy diet as the other healthy diet, right? And so quality matters is my point, okay? And so hopefully that answers. I do not like calorie counting. I would say intuitive eating, that's kind of a catch-22, because intuitive eating for some people means never eating. And intuitive eating for others means eating whatever they want, bad or good. So I guess you could say either one of those I'm not a fan of. I would tell you I'm probably going to be more of a fan of macro-based eating, if that makes sense. Knowing how many grams of protein, carbs, and fat that your body needs based off your activity levels. And then with that being said, getting carbs in, making sure that they're complex carbs and not the simple carbs, because that's going to mess with your insulin. So that's going to be where I prefer, is like the macro-based eating. With that also being said, some people really like the ketogenic diet, and I've done that, and I'm a fan of it for specific periods of time. If you have to reset hormones, help with like cancer situations, ketogenic is very good short term, and you can still do macro-based eating with ketogenic. But long term, for maintenance, I really like to just understand you gotta have consistent protein in, and then play with the fats and the carbs based off your activity levels. But protein is huge. You base everything off protein, from my opinion and my experience, okay? People will have better responses to keeping a healthy amount of protein going for them. All right, how you guys doing? Good. I love the hearts. We're almost in the home stretch here. I think I just have 2 more questions, and then we're going to be finishing up here. Another great question from a patient of mine. She texted me this after she was watching a documentary for a college course, and she was very shocked that because she thought all supplements were good. And I think most of us think that. Most of us think, oh, well, aren't just taking supplements is just good for us. I should just take a supplement. Doesn't matter where I get it. And probably for the majority, supplements are good for you. But just like anything, quality does matter, and the right type of supplement for when you're needing it for your health and wellness needs. For me, I prefer that we get nutrients from our foods first, and manage like stress and manage sleep. And then supplements are to like help fill in the gaps of just things that have come our way. Like for example, if you live in Minnesota or the northern climates, which is where we're at, vitamin D is just, unfortunately, about 80% of my patients are vitamin D deficient, and by a lot, like a lot. Like my patients come in with like levels of 13 and 14 with their vitamin D, and they need to be at 60, if that gives any reference, okay? Now, I'm gonna throw in a little vitamin D disclaimer. If you are taking high doses of vitamin D, by the way, it is advisable that you get tested every 3 to 4 months, because good thing is when you're taking vitamin D in larger quantities, it works. And then you don't need to keep taking it, if that makes sense. You want to get it to a healthy maintenance level, and then fingers crossed you get to actually get out in the sun in the summertime and you get natural vitamin D, and then that's just a balancing trick, right? So that's where they need supplements. And it's very advisable if you live in the northern climates. Southern climates, that doesn't seem to be an issue as much. But anyways, so get back to the point of supplements. No. So if you understand how supplements are regulated, they actually are not regulated. It is one of those areas, just like fragrances and skincare and beauty care are not regulated by the government. So anyone can make a supplement. Anyone can market that their supplement has such and such, and then it can be tested and it's actually nothing in there that they said it was, okay? Your cheaper vitamins are going to be cheaper quality, and they're going to be kind of not so good for you internally. So I really tell people to avoid like getting your vitamins from a box store, because they're going to be cheap, and they're cheap quality, and they're synthetically made half the time. And so you can then, unfortunately, as you're taking those supplements, they can become a toxic burden. Okay? So it's kind of like, oh my goodness, I can't win. So that's where you get to like use me, because I've been at this for so long, and I said I probably bought 40 or 50 different electrolyte drinks. I'm probably in the thousands of bottles of supplement companies that I have tried out there. So it's just, and as a doctor, you're approached by everyone, right, to sell their supplements. And there's really good supplements out there. There's really good companies. So it sometimes makes it hard to narrow it down. But yes, you want to make sure that you are taking a high quality supplement. You do not want to have it becoming a toxic burden in your system, okay? So I listed in there, if you can see it okay, just these are some of the ones that over the years have been consistently good for myself and my patients, experimenting enough. And I'm not getting any money from this, but these are just really consistent companies. Seeking Health, Apex Energetics, Designs for Health, Dr. Eric Berg, Nutrition Dynamics, Ancient Nutrients, Young Living has some really good ones, Nordic Naturals, Standard Process, Integrative Therapeutics, Cellcore, and I could literally go on and on and on and on and on, okay? So the point is, you're in luck. There's really good companies. You just have to kind of know what you're looking for. Okay, Thorne. Thorne's a very common, another good brand. So I've seen that one around. So some people do like that one. I know some people have questioned some of their practices of, I don't know, it's like a controversy. There's another controversy behind it. I'm not going to get into it. But yes, that's another good brand I've heard of. Okay, last question. You guys are doing so great. And this is just on food. Where did it go? It's on food addiction. Sorry, I'm trying to find my slide here. Did it not save? Okay, I don't think it's saved. Sometimes when I save my slides, oh, there it is. There it is. Found it. Okay. So the last question we have here is, can you explain addiction to foods and what they do to the brain? If you want to watch another really good segment, it's called Sugar Toxicity by 60 Minutes. And this was put on years ago. And it's like only 13 minutes long. But it talks about just sugar in general with the addiction of what it does to our brain. So cool. What they did is they had a guy lay in a functional MRI and he drank soda pop from a straw, and then they got to watch his brain light up, and the same brain areas that light up when you are having cocaine or like a heavy hitting drug, that same area lit up when the guy had sugar, okay, because it hit his dopamine, like woohoo, it like lit up the dopamine areas, which is what drugs do, okay? And as you all can guess, sugar is probably one of the very most addictive substances out there. Some would even say even more so than cocaine, okay? Because it's even harder to give up. It is everywhere and it's so socially accepted. And it works just the same as a drug in that the more sugar you have, the more tolerance you build to it. So that means then one bite is never enough. You need to have another. And then it's like, oh, that's not enough. And then another. And before you know it, you're having copious amounts of sugar because two things. It's creating a tolerance to that part of your brain that creates the dopamine. It makes you feel good and happy. And just like a drug, the more you want, the more you're going to crave. And the more you need to create that high, to stimulate, that part of the brain. The other thing it does is it makes more receptors on your cells, right? Your cells have to make more insulin receptors. And so then as the more you get it in, you need more to kind of just, the body just more and more. And it's just one of those things where it's like, you could just keep going at it and not know, because you're at this point, you're addicted and your body has adapted for the more substance, okay? So food addiction is real, and especially with sugar and the other things that have, they make our food very addicting. They make food to be very flavorful, and there's food additives, and just the right ratio. There's even on that documentary I was telling you about, how it was that sugar film. Dr. Pepper found this thing called the bliss point. This guy invented the bliss point, where you have this much sugar, it's like the perfect amount. A little more than that, it's like sometimes it's too much. And so there's literal research about how to make foods addictive to us so that we'll keep buying it, okay? So you can kind of like, oh my goodness, we just can't win. So knowing that these foods are out there and knowing what it does to you, it gives you awareness so that you can be like, okay, when I want that piece of candy, really try to have that willpower to like just stick to the one, and then maybe try to like distract yourself to have something else, or go for a walk, or take a drink of water, right? There's so many little tricks that you can start to back down the threshold of addiction and what it does to the parts of your brain, creating the dopamine high. So hopefully I answered that question. I know it gets a lot more complex than that and more detailed, but yeah, foods are addicting. That's why we're all here, right? So speaking of that, sometimes with food addiction and health choices, we can feel stuck. We can feel overwhelmed. We can feel, I don't even know how to do this. And so I was telling you guys in the very beginning, the next class I'm going to be having is, do you self-sabotage? And you're going to be mind blown at this next class. It's a great, great class. If you are like, why do I tell myself I don't deserve good? Or why do I tell myself I don't deserve to be healthy? Or why do I tell myself I don't deserve to be in a good relationship? Or why do I sabotage being successful? So it's not just health, it's gonna be a class on kind of the whole kit and caboodle of why we do these things to ourselves and set ourselves up to fail. And I don't want that for you guys, okay? I want you guys to be set up for success, but it takes understanding yourself a little bit deeper. So we're gonna do that next class, okay? And then okay. All right, so if you guys don't have any more questions, thank you. Good class, right? You guys did amazing with your questions. Super pumped, and we'll have to do it again. I loved all the questions. Thanks for the hearts. Okay, well, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks, okay? Bye, Katie. Bye, Jana. Bye, Sarah. Bye, Miss Jarnot. Bye, Miss Post. Love you guys.